Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the Parish Partnership Panel. Your attention is drawn to agenda item 1, which sets out the rules and guidance of this meeting will be conducted, including the ground rules. Just to notify you also, we've had some plumbing problems with the two loos just locally. So if you want to use the loos, you'll have to go to reception and the caretaker will give you a pass and show you where it is. So apart from borough councillors, their passes work, but others, you'd have to go to reception now. Okay. And as a way of introduction, I would suggest we do a roll call to confirm which borough councillors, county councillors and parish or town council representatives are in attendance. I'm going to ask Sally, our Democratic Service Officer, to undertake that call. Sally?
Thank you, Chair. We will start with borough councillors and then move on to parish and town councils and finish with county councillors. When I call your name, please can you confirm that you are present? Councillor Dalton?
Present.
Councillor Tatton?
Present.
Councillor Bell?
Present.
Councillor Betts?
Present.
We have received apologies from Councillor Banks. Councillor Bolton?
I'm here.
We have received apologies for in-person attendance from Councillor Boxall, who is with us online. And we have also received apologies from for in-person attendance from Councillor Chapman, who is also with us online. And we have apologies from Councillor Coffin and Councillor Crisp. I can see he's online.
Online.
Thank you. Councillor Hammond is currently not in the chat. Councillor Hickmott. Councillor Taylor.
Present.
And now we are moving on to parish and town councils. I will call by the name of the parish and town council, and I'd be grateful if one of their representatives can please confirm they're present. Addington. Anyone online? Aylesford.
Present.
Thank you. Berlin. Garth Green. Barham. Eaton.
Present online.
Thank you. East Morley and Luckfield. East Peckham.
Present.
Hatlow. Hildenborough. Item. Kings Hill.
Present online.
Thank you. Leybourne.
Present online.
Merriworth. Orphan. Platt.
Present.
And Plaxtel, we have apologies. Nobody saw. Okay, yeah, so that's apologies. Bryash. I think we have our Vice Chair, Mary McKinley, online with us.
No.
Was online earlier, I saw. Okay. Sheburn. Northland. Stansted.
Present.
Crossley. Wateringbury.
Present online.
Westmoreland.
Present.
West Peckham. Walden, we have an apology from Councillor Collier Ward. Anybody online or apologies? Rutan.
Present.
Thank you. And now we're moving on to county councillors and Councillor Dean, I think it's an apology. Councillor Hudson.
Present online.
Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Rayner.
Present.
And we have apologies from Councillor Shine. That's the roll call concluded.
Thank you, Sally. Are there any other apologies from the floor? No, thank you. Item 4.
Councillor Coffin.
Item 4, the minute to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of November 25. They are attached, are a correct record. Have we any concerns about those minutes? Have I your permission to sign them? Thank you. Item 5, update on actions identified in the last minute. If anyone has anything on those minutes and wish to update or comment upon. No, thank you. Item, well, we're going change of agenda here. We're going to item 9, and I'm going to ask Inspector Sarah McKinley to do her presentation.
Simple. Usually I have a loud enough voice, so I don't need a microphone, but I will use it. Good evening, everyone. For those that have not met me, I think I've probably seen most of your faces online or in person before, but I'm Zara McKaney, the CSU Inspector for Tunbridge and Moorland. Been in post now for a year, so like I say, hopefully I've seen or at least spoken to you in the room. So it's a pleasure to be here this evening. I'll go through some bits that I've got. Any questions, please do let me know. And if I can't answer anything today, I'll take it away. Just give me your email address and I'll get back to you. So I've been asked just to talk about a couple of things in relation to the current picture of antisocial behaviour across the district as it stands. And I'll just compare it with our West colleagues as well, just so we know roughly where we are within reported incidents. So the data is accurate as of yesterday. And so I picked up probably our 3 highest reported ASB categories, which probably won't surprise you, with the top one being motor vehicle nuisance and road. Then we've got rowdy or nuisance gatherings in public, and then drunken and rowdy behaviour. There are 3 categories across the district that causes us the most antisocial behaviour. So for a number of figures, reported figures in the last 90 days. So Tunbridge and Moorland have seen 110 reported incidents of motor vehicles, and we compare that with our West colleagues, with Maidstone at 119, Sevenoaks at 66, and Tunbridge Wells at 61. So although not the highest across West, obviously when you look at the geography, it still is really high. A caveat to this antisocial behaviour reporting is we have had a change in system with the police. I've probably let a few of you know before. The way we record ASB now has meant there has been a rise, but that is across the board as well. So I take these numbers relatively. The probably key areas for that is, as we know, Snodland, the A228, which causes the biggest issue for our ASB with motor vehicles. Followed by East Beckham. Rowdy or nuisance gathering in public. We've got Tunbridge and Moorland at 111 reported incidents, Maidstone at 170, Sevenoaks 66, and Tunbridge Wells 122. So although our second highest reported levels of ASB, we sit 3rd, just above Sevenoaks, which in a grand scheme of recording is relatively positive. Drunken and rowdy behaviour, we sit at the bottom of all of them at 47. It's difficult for a data perspective to say what is causing those. How do we categorise? that is down to person and people in our control room putting these into categories. So if you want to ask me, what does rowdy and nuisance gathering in public mean? The description is broad, but is it the best category? Looking at data, which I think is important, is yes, we're getting those calls, but how many of those calls are the police getting to? Which is a really important point. And Tunbridge and Moreland have resourced the most calls relating to motor vehicles, which I really wanted to highlight to you just to show the commitment that we have to this call type, despite the difficulties that it does cause, not just for us as police, but for the council as well. I just noted here as well that there's just a lot of the calls lack substance. So we may get phone calls to nuisance vehicles, but it is, I can hear a horn, I can hear something. So sometimes, although the calls are coming in, I review them all myself. Sometimes as residents, of course, get more and more frustrated with the situation, more and more calls come for less contexted stuff. Any questions on those categories before I move on at all? Yeah, go on. Okay, so there we go.
Do you think we need the camera restoring on the A228 at Holborough, on the A228?
Are you referring to the camera that we put in front of the council? No, it offered us nothing. As we thought, we put it in as we discussed, because why not? We've got to try everything, but it offered nothing because of the time of night, the glaring lights into the camera. Despite it being there, it captured and evidenced for us. So no is the straight answer, sadly.
Des, online. Des Kears.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good evening to everyone. Yeah, Zara, thank you ever so much for all the work that you do in partnership with our Community Safety Partnership. It's first-class effort. I was fortunate enough today to sit at the Police and Crime panel as part of my portfolio. I sort of, like with others, hold the Commissioner and the Chief Constable to account for their actions, the budget precepts, etc. And today the Commissioner gave us an overview of what the plans for the next year ahead. And you raised a couple of really interesting points, and I think it's only right to share those with you, in that he says that we should not get nervous about antisocial behaviour going up, and in particular in Tunbridge and Moreland. He didn't mention us in isolation, but because we've got an antisocial behaviour team, or a safer neighbourhoods team, that goes out and encourages people to report antisocial behaviour. So naturally it's going to go up, and the Commissioner is saying, if it's going up, we're putting people on the streets with the new neighbourhood policing model. That's exactly the response that we need. Kent Police is an intelligence-led operation, as is the partnership. And without people reporting it, we can't use that intelligence to assist. So let's not get, I don't want to get too hung up on figures and the ASB figures going up, because it means that we're actually achieving what we set out to do. The second point I'd like to make and Paul Hickmott raises an interesting issue there. Yeah, our cameras were not fit for purpose for what we set out to do in relation to the nuisance vehicles. Having had a chat, myself and Sarah Hudson had a chat with the Crime Commissioner after the meeting today. He's looking at a new innovative camera system, which could be brought in sooner rather than later. Let's just say that. But I got there first, and so if it comes into fruition, it will come to Tunbridge and Moreland for a pilot. And guess where it's going to be located, Paul Hickmott. So therefore, in addition to that, Alison Finch, our CSP lead, is looking at best practice around the county, and also with camera manufacturers, because what we can't have is a camera put up that doesn't bring us successful outcomes, i.e. it doesn't read number plates, etc., in the dark. So lots of work ongoing. I'm quite excited about the Crime Commissioner's offer to use us as a pilot site for this new piece of kit. It's very expensive. We do need to pilot it first, and so Tunbridge and Moreland will have first dibs at that, which is really good. But I just wanted to say, in terms of ASB, it's a good news story, because West Division, West Kent, is always quite low in antisocial behaviour, in my experience. If you compare that with North Kent and East Kent, as Zara will tell you we are a mile away and in very good shape. But thank you very much for letting me speak, Chair.
Thank you, Des. Zara, do you want to comment on anything Des has said?
No further comment. Yeah, excited about the camera if it does come.
Luke Chapman.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the inspector for her work in Snodland. It's been very much appreciated.
Sue Bell.
Yeah, I was going to thank you as well, Zara, because you've done an awful lot of work for us in Snodden. I don't think people appreciate that. But also Tunbridge and Morgan as well, with Alison Finch and Des. And I can't thank you for enough. And I know we're trying to resolve these issues, and it's really quite exciting about the camera, as you say, getting excited about a camera. But there, we might catch a few more people. Thank you very much.
Any other questions from the floor?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just wondered whether e-scooters are included in your figures there, and how big a problem you see that as, and what are there any specific actions you're taking to address those problems?
Yeah, sure. E-scooters, as far as I'm aware, do not come under that category because of its motor vehicles, as opposed to this a long time, whether it is a motor vehicle or not. As a problem, it is a problem, but it's not a huge problem. We get very, very limited calls on it. It causes most issues within our town centres, Tunbridge High Street, Snodland High Street. But it is something that we will. I've seen Maidstone in particular. I think we don't see it. It is something called peripheral, and it needs innovative ways to tackle it as well, because of the way police are and how aren't necessarily chase bikes. But yeah, I'll take that away as well. Make sure keep it back.
Right. Any other questions from the floor for Zara? She's got to toddle off after this little session. So she's here. Talk to her if you've got concerns.
Lovely, thank you.
Apparently, Zara, we haven't got concerns. So if you'd like to leave the meeting.
Well, a couple more bits that I can go through. If
No, Snodland's just put the hand up.
Sorry, I thought we were focusing on motorists. It's just about ASB. I know that Snodland's had extra patrols and it's all gone quiet and nobody notices because it's all gone quiet. Some reports of people with catapults at Holborough attacking the ducks again. And of course, we're going around towards the warmer weather now. So if you just keep an eye on that, it'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was going to come on to general ASB, obviously, where Snodland High Street does feature again relatively high. Catapults is a national focus for policing. I think we discussed before the difficulties with catapults and legality around whether they're illegal or not, but being a bit more elaborate, I guess, in the offences that we use. Wildlife offences is definitely one that we go down. So it is a focus not just for Tunbridge and Malden, but also nationwide. And I know whilst we're looking, Des may have more to say on that one, but with the PSPO including it as part of within that, again, comes with its own difficulties. Most of it's under 60 kids under 16, so we've got to really get into the education of parents, which is that stop it.
Des, did you want to come back on something?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to say, and Zara just mentioned it there, we have included catapult crime in our public space protection order this year. It's just concluding the consultation, so that'll be up and running quite soon. So it's absolutely at the forefront of everything we're trying to do. And I just wondered if I may ask Zara a question. Zara, could you just give me your opinion as a really key strategic partner of the authority of Tunbridge and Malden Borough Council, how you see the antisocial behaviour team as it was? We're going to rebadge it as a Safer Neighbourhoods team. How you see it? How you see the working environment with our staff when they're here?
The working relationship between the police and your staff is incredible. I don't think there's any other word to describe it. The close relationship between Alison and Michelle in particular, with the local beat officers. Sometimes I don't even know about it because Michelle and Alison have dealt with it with the officers themselves. So it's a really, really close working environment. We all work down the corridor here, so I couldn't ask for any better.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you.
Harry.
Chairman, with your consent, I'd like to just clarify something with Des Kears, or Councillor Kears, just to ask the question, as and when the consultation and arrangements are processed, how does he, or how the borough intending to promulgate the fact that catapult crime is now included as part of ASP, please? Thank you.
Des, can you answer that one, please?
Yeah, absolutely. What we'll do is it will come to the Communities and the Environment Scrutiny Select Committee with the consultation results. I'm not sure of when the next one is because I know Jill's not in attendance this evening, but the chair is. I'm not sure if Sarah knows the exact dates, but that's the process, Harry. And then from there we'll actually get it into legislation, if you like, through the PSPO and we'll start tackling that with our teams and a public announcement that the fact is that it's live and catapult crime will be taken much more seriously, I guess, than it has been in the past.
Chairman, I'm obliged.
Thank you. Sarah Hudson. Sarah, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I was just coming back to say that the next community environment is in March.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for questions. Thank you for attending. I hope you come again sometime. And on behalf of all the parishes here, thank you. We're back on the, as the agenda is printed, item 6 is update on local government reorganisation. Sarah. Matt, I believe you're leading on this, are you?
Yes, as always, I'll do a bit of a joint effort with Damien. Damien's just going to pull some slides up, which have been very hastily prepared by Damien because this is very hot off the press in that the government has today launched its consultation on the different options for local government reorganisation. So what we're just going to briefly do is explain what that means and critically the key ask of you as parishes, because this is the best opportunity for parish councils to have their say. So the next slide that Damien's going to move on to now has got quite a complicated timeline. At the top is every single month between now and April 2028, which is the date in which the new authorities will come into formation. So when you kind of put it up like that, you realise this isn't very far away at all. The key milestones indicate essentially what the government's timeline is. So consultation started today. It ends on the 26th of March. Then the government decision on which of the 5 options that they wish to pursue is taken in July. A SCO is a structural changes order, and that is likely in September or October. I'm expecting there's people who don't know what a structural changes order is. That effectively is the bit of parliamentary legislation that's needed in order to set up the new authorities. So that happens in September, October, but we will know in July what the new authority will look like. In May 2027, we have parish elections for those parishes that have elections, and on the same day there'll be elections to the new unitary authorities. Now, the new unitary authorities, despite starting in April 2028, the elections come a year early and they operate as a shadow authority for 11 months. After the shadow authority is formed, they need to do things like appoint the key officers, as is up there. That's part of the readiness stage. So we'll have a period between May 2027 and April 2028 in which the existing councils will continue to exist, but the new council will be operating as a shadow authority. And then vesting day is the day in which essentially the old councils stop and the new councils start. So all of the services that Tunbridge and Morlin and Kent continue to deliver is part of business as usual, as you see at the bottom. After vesting day, the new unitary will deliver all of the services. Just a couple of other things on there. Delivery phases are really important because essentially there's a piece of work that happens now, which is based around the consultation, and then that essentially in July, when we find out what we're turning into, that stops and we move into what's called a foundational phase. So that's the preparations, because we know for sure what the future is going to look like then. And as part of that, joint committees will be set up between the representatives of the various councils that will move into the new councils. So if under our proposed preferred model, if that goes ahead, you'd have representatives from this council, Kent County Council, Tunbridge Wells, Maidstone and Sevenoaks all on the joint committee, and the joint committee's work would finish at the time of the shadow elections, and then those newly elected unitary councillors would take over the role for a year before the new authority starts. But critically, that's very complicated, I do appreciate, and we've obviously never done this before in this way, business as usual carries on. So from the perspective of members of the public, that will continue, but this is all happening in the background. Thank you, Damien. Next slide is just a reminder of the maps that you'll have seen before. These are the 5 options. The government is consulting on all 5. Our preferred model is in red, which is a free unitary model that has us with Tunbridge Wells, Sevenoaks and Maidstone. The reason that we opted for that is quite simple, in that we think that delivers the best outcome for residents and is the most compliant with the government's criteria, as we've discussed at many parish partnership panels before, but happy to go into that further if you wish. Next slide, please. So here we are. These are the key points. So it's got a balanced population between the 3 unitaries. That means it's big enough to matter in terms of getting inward investment, but also small enough to care because it respects local identities and can withstand financial shocks. We heard earlier from Zara about some of the differences that they see in West Division compared to North Division and East Division. Well, the boundaries of the Kent Police Divisions are exactly the same as these boundaries here for option 3A. The North Division would be North Kent Council, Dartford, Gravesham, Medway, Swale. East Division, Canterbury, Thanet, Dover, Folkestone, Ashford, and then us in West Division. And one of the criteria for the government is alignment with other public sector authorities. So one of our key points has been that we now would share exactly the same geography as Kent Police, and that can only be good for everyone because you heard from Zara about some of the key benefits of us working together. And also, it's got the best value for money of all of the multi-unitary options. And it's got the support of the greatest number of boroughs and districts, 5 from across Kent. So Damien's now just going to talk through essentially what was announced today and where we go from there. But before he does that, I will just touch on the concerns with other models. See, I did confirm this was done very hastily. So Options 4D and 5A break borough and parish boundaries up. So, for example, in option 4D, which is promoted by Medway Council in particular, Aylesford Parish is broken up, Leybourne Parish is broken up, East Peckham Parish is broken up, Merryworth Parish is broken up, and there's a couple of others that don't come to mind immediately. So we've argued consistently that parishes need to stay together, because I'm sure none of you want to see your parishes broken up at all. That adds cost, that adds complexity to it. That obviously has implications for parish councils in terms of your delivery of your services. Critically, anything that's bigger than the free unitary model isn't compatible with the government's guidelines, because that's the single unitary across Kent and means that you can't get devolution. Anything that has 4 or 5 unitaries has got the danger in which we're not big enough to deal with some of the financial shocks, given some of the big services that Kent County Council delivers will be delivered by this unitary. And for me, the key point is that, and this is why the single unitary of 1A is not one that we've gone for, which is I don't think a council of 2 million people is genuinely local government. I think that's all from me. Over to Damien now.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you so much, Matt. So just looking at the consultation, so as Matt said, the consultation only launched today, so this timing of the meeting is incredibly helpful. The government actually gave us, I think, 2 days notice that the consultation was going to start, and it concludes in about 7 weeks. So there's a limited amount of time. As Matt said, this is by far the best and also the last opportunity to have an influence over the outcome. Because once this consultation is concluded, it will be the government that we're making the final decision in the summer, probably in July. What I've got here on the left-hand side is a link to the government-led consultation. And I've just set out on the right what it looks like when you go into the consultation pages, because I certainly want to encourage you and any of the other parish councils that aren't here this evening to make use of this opportunity, this last important opportunity to have your say about the future of local government in this part of the country. Now, the government are asking those that are responding to respond to each of the 5 options. So as well as supporting your preferred option, you have the opportunity to say something about the other options. And you've heard Matt contrast the 3A option, which is the one we've discussed at every meeting that we've been here, which is our council's preferred option, with the challenges and difficulties associated with the others. There were only 12 questions in the survey, so that's really good. And 9 of those questions simply asks you to identify on a scale of from strongly agree to strongly disagree or don't know. So it's really, really straightforward, just selecting an option from that list. And I just wanted to spend a moment just quickly running through the type of questions that you are going to see when you go to the government's website. So they're going to ask questions like, to what extent do you agree or disagree that the proposal suggests councils that are based on that the proposals suggest councils that are based on sensible geographies and economic areas. So what does the government mean by sensible geographies? Well, I think Matt's outlined some of the definition. Do they respect existing boundaries of parish and borough councils? Do they make sense in terms of other service providers like the NHS, like the police, indeed even voluntary sector organisations? The 3 unitary option definitely does. I think those other options, particularly those that break through parish and borough boundaries, clearly don't. To what extent do you agree or disagree that the proposed councils will be able to deliver the outcomes they describe in the proposal? The good news is that the 3A option is based on evidence produced by KPMG, one of the most experienced national consultancies that are involved in local government and have seen a number of councils successfully through this process. And as we've mentioned before, the 3 unitary option scores highest against the government criteria as assessed by KPMG, the independent consultant. To what extent do you agree or disagree that proposed councils are for size to be efficient, improve capacity and withstand financial shocks? And as Matt mentioned before, one of the challenges of having 4 unitaries, which 2 of the options suggest, and then 5 unitaries, is that they're a lot smaller. And they are much more likely to be vulnerable to those financial shocks. But also the independent evidence showed that when you get to 4 or 5 unitaries, it becomes very difficult to cover the cost of implementing the new unitaries. Because every time you create an additional council, you're having to create another set of infrastructure for adult social care, for children's social care, for highways. And therefore, the cost of implementing LGR becomes much more difficult to repay. So I won't go through every question, but you can see that the questions here really do pick up on the feedback that we've outlined already and that Matt has described earlier. Have a quick look at the others. Yeah, maybe item 7. To what extent do you agree or disagree that establishing councils will support the devolution arrangement? You might recall when the government started this journey, the focus was on devolution. And devolution had the opportunity to bring additional resources to the area and additional freedoms and flexibilities. The government have now said that devolution is coming, but it's going to come after local government reorganisation. But it's really important that what we do in local government reorganisation provides really positive foundation stones for those opportunities ahead. Now, we heard from Matt that the 3 unitary option provides balanced populations. And that is so important when thinking about establishing this wider strategic authority, because the representation that sits beneath it is really helpful if the councils that sit beneath have broadly similar populations, therefore have broadly similar weight within discussions within the strategic authority. So the 3A option certainly delivers really well against the question 7. And the single unitary proposal that has been recommended by Kent County Council unfortunately would absolutely fail that test, because a single unitary would make it impossible to establish a strategic authority on the same geography. Those are the questions the government has identified. Quite straightforward, I think, to answer. And certainly I'd want to encourage all of the parish councils within Tunbridge and Malling to take the opportunity to respond to the consultation. Now, the government have said, of course, their preferred route to response is the survey, but they have also said that you can choose to write in to MHCLG at the address I've given on the slide, or via email with the email address I've also given. And I thought it would be helpful, and Matt, you might want to talk to this one, to share with you a letter from Hildenborough Parish Council, who recently wrote to us with their views about local government reorganisation. And I think it provides a useful template if any of you are considering writing in. But Matt, over to you on that one.
Yes, and while Kathy's here, thank you to Hildenborough for their letter, which was sent on the 23rd of December. But essentially, I think it's a really good example of, if you don't want to fill in all 12 questions, but please do fill in all 12 questions if you want, is that's a sort of letter that's invaluable, really. And if parishes are responding to the government, then we'd be very grateful if you copied us in here at Tunbridge and Malling to Damien and I, just so that we can, when we obviously respond ourselves, it'd be good to sort of say we're doing so with the support of X number of parishes. But again, it's from our perspective, it's just a case of making sure that your voice matters, because while the government have listed stakeholders, they have referenced in there that parish councils are a particularly important voice that they want to hear from. So this is your moment between now and the 26th of March to have your say. And what we can do is in the next few days email all of this out to you, so that when you discuss it in your parish councils, you'll do so in the best of knowledge. Thank you.
And just to say finally, the letter also picks up something that was in our submission, particularly from the leader of the council, which was that as well as promoting 3A because the evidence showed that it was the best option of all the 5 options. Also highlighted the need for the government to really give much greater recognition to the role of parish councils and to ensure that they're as equally valued in the local government family as the focus that the government's had so far on county councils and boroughs and districts. So really wanting to make sure the government recognise and value the role of parish councils. So if you're writing a letter in, please do take the opportunity to make that point as well. Chair, thank you very much.
I'd like to ask a question. If in May 27 we have borough councillors and or parish councillors that do not want to extend their period for a year, what is that situation, or how do you resolve that situation?
So the parish councillors, because parish councils aren't affected by the reorganisation, albeit there's a caveat if the 4D gets approved, then the parish elections go ahead as normal. Under the timetable that we discussed earlier, the government as part of that SCO would usually, albeit we won't know until September, simply cancel the elections that are due to take place to Tunbridge and Malling that day, and would ask Tunbridge and Malling councillors to stay on for another 11 months during that year of 2027-28. We don't know that though at the moment, and obviously it's been the news elsewhere that certain elections have been cancelled, but and the controversy there has been that essentially that has taken place before that shadow year has started. If it is the case that the terms of office get extended by a year by the government and a borough councillor or a county councillor doesn't wish to see it out, then our understanding, based on previous experiences, was that a by-election would have to be held. But at this point, we simply don't know, and we won't know the answers to that till September. That's just what has happened before. And the evidence of the reorganisation that's taking place at the moment is that some of the things that happened before are happening now, and some of the things that happened before aren't happening. So that's probably a completely hopeless answer, Chairman, but it shows how much uncertainty there still is.
Harry?
Thank you, Chairman. There's a couple of points that I'd just like to make and perhaps put to Matt and Damien. Starting with the situation in connection with a single unitary. Now, whilst I appreciate that a single unitary could be perceived as being as offering less in the way of local democracy, the fact is that the 3 unitary authority model supported by Tunbridge and Malling is not the cheapest, and what Matt said is the cheapest of the multiple unitary options, but by far and away the cheapest option is the single unitary offered by KCC. And I have to add that no one has talked money here, or finance or council tax here this evening. I talk to you as a former Deputy Cabinet Member, Finance at KCC. And I can tell you that as the additional costs of 3 or 4 unitaries is tens of millions of pounds more. And that's using the same figures across all councils that Matt made reference to. I think it was Matt put together by KPMG. And so it wants to be borne in mind that if you are concerned in any way with regard to the impact on council tax, and I'll be perfectly frank with you, the government is not giving any undertakings or any free trips here. The whole of the costs of this, apart from the £550 or just over £500,000 worth of consultants' fees for KPMG, is going to come from the local taxpayer. You have to add to that the increasing indebtedness, and KCC continue to put a lack of truth around it, that they are reducing debt. They are not. whilst they have made some reduction, they continue to increase their debt at £65 million a year purely on the safety valve scheme alone, without any reference to anything else. When you add this to the debt and the costs of disaggregation of KCC and Medway services, you're looking at significant, really significant additional costs. I think the additional costs that KPMG work out somewhere with the difference between 5 and 1 unitary. Single unitary is around the 100 million mark, and 5 is north of 200 million. And that needs to be taken into account by those who are looking at the situation. Whilst I accept that 2 million people is out with the government's initial proposals, the fact is that other authorities have been taken out with this, Surrey being one, for example, where they've come back with 2 authorities within Surrey for a similar type of population. And having made this point, I just want to just make the point that no one's made else on this, and that relates to the relative poverty of East and North Kent compared with West. Whilst for West Kent, the 3 unitary model may look attractive, that's based upon the relatively low debt figures. Tunbridge Wells and Tunbridge and Morling and Sevenoaks have next to no debt. Maidstone has a little more, but when you look at the debt implications for East Kent and North Kent, the fact is that it will be in the hands of the minister to decide ultimately, if agreement cannot be reached, how the debt is spread around Kent. And looking at the fact of a Labour government, in my view, it is innocent abroad thinking to feel that they are going to simply let West Kent off on the basis that it has minimal debts at the moment. The fact is, in my view, that you have to look at this on the basis of reality. And the reality, in my view, is that you need to look at it on the basis that this debt is likely to be spread about, regardless of the proposals made by Matt and his other leader colleagues in West Kent. The difficulty here is that a minister is in a Labour government is unlikely to be swayed by those, and the additional costs picked up as a result of going for 3 is likely to be much higher, and it will record itself on the council tax bills put out after devolution, after local government reorganisation. And what I would say in connection with devolution, promises made by this current government are fine and dandy, but you have to work out whether or not the delivery of devolution is likely to come at the fag end of a government that is already in its death throes. And if your views on this are that the promises are going to be kept of devolution, then decide as you will. My personal view is that devolution is most likely for another decade. In those circumstances, Chairman, I've said my piece on this. I simply, certainly, that's the message I'm passing on to those parishes in my division.
Harry, Matt, you wanted to respond?
Yeah, I mean, what I would just say is that the financial issues in councils aren't directly correlated to the wealth of an area determined on its GDP or determined on any other factor by which you would determine wealth. Some of the wealthiest parts of the country, some of the authorities in Surrey that have the highest debt levels, places like Spelthorne and Woking, which have been in the press as being particularly bad examples of that. Now, we are debt-free authority at Tunbridge and Morling. We are one of only a handful of debt-free authorities in the country. We have managed our finances exceedingly well for 50 years. Kent County Council has got hundreds of millions of pounds of debt. Now, granted, they are delivering some services which certainly over recent years have become almost impossible to balance the books. But the long and the short of it is we are going into this in the best financial position we can be, and any debt that we end up with is going to primarily come from the way the county council has managed its services over recent years. And we all lose out from that, really, because what's the incentive for us to continue to run a financially sound authority under this local government reorganisation? Because, of course, it's going to be much harder and much trickier for us moving forward. The other point that I would say too is that devolution is something that I think there is broad consensus on, but the only way you will get devolution is if you can set up a mayoral combined authority. And to have a combined authority, you need something to combine with, which means you need multiple councils underneath that. The geography for a mayoral combined authority is Kent and Medway. That is agreed by everyone. That's agreed by the government. So if you get devolution, whether it's a decade, whether it's 2 decades, or whether it's 2 years, you have to have multiple unitaries. It is that simple. You cannot, under the government legislation, under the English Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill, the existing or future legislation, you cannot have a combined authority if you have nothing to combine with. And I'll send you the legislation, Harry, because I can see you shaking your head there, because it's just simply what I've said is absolutely correct. Now, I feel quite strongly about this because I think it's completely absurd to think that your principal authorities will be 2 million people. I just think that's not local democracy. It's not local government. And for some of our communities and some of the parishes that you here tonight, you have a few hundred people in your parishes. And I think there's a huge gap between, and I think some of the smaller parishes in particular will just be lost in this. And I really, really do worry about that lack of local representation. And we could look at things through a financial lens, and obviously that's really important, but we're here to do because we care about the community. And local government delivers services that actually the private sector often doesn't want to do. We're here to look after the most vulnerable, I think. We're here to really care about every community, and I hope that I've sort of demonstrated as leader of Tunbridge and Morning Council, I'll come to every single parish and talk to you about whatever issue that we've got. You won't get that with a county-wide unitary. You won't get that care, you won't get that attention. The parish partnership panel for a county-wide unitary will be covering issues from Edenbridge to Margate. That's not going to serve any parish well. And I just think we can't forget that here. And that's why this consultation is so important. And that's why it's my very firm view that one unitary is a complete disaster. Thank you.
Right, we've got a list of speakers, so I'm going to take it as follows. Damien, then Sarah Hudson, Mike Taylor, back to Harry.
I think Matt covered most of what I was thinking of saying, but just to urge caution, I think, whenever somebody says cheapest, it's a reminder, I think, that there are many ways to be cheapest. You can abolish things and they get really cheap. You can combine them on an even bigger scale. Why not combine the county area with the surrounding counties? That would certainly be cheaper. But the language I think we have to think about is best value and effectiveness. And if we want council services to be genuinely responsive to local needs, genuinely represent the interests of local people, and to be close enough, I think as Matt said, to really care about local communities, then having a unitary that's bigger than anything that's ever existed in local government, 2 million population, isn't going to deliver effectiveness and isn't going to be delivering value for money. Thank you.
Sarah Hudson.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we have to be very careful with the options that we have on the table here. Let's not forget that the one unitary model is the only group that put this forward is Kent County Council, and that's not Kent County Council as in the body, that is Reform. And this is what Reform wants to do. They want to cling on to running Kent. And having witnessed the first 8 months of them running the county, it's not something I want to see continue for the inevitable future, because they simply aren't up to the job, I'm afraid. So I think it's very, very foolhardy to suggest that giving them all of this power, you know, with them running it, it'll be an absolute nightmare for Kent residents. I really do. So consequently, we need to be very, very careful what we wish for. The whole premise of the 3 unitaries, option 3A, actually allows people to work together, because at the end of the day, nothing is ever achieved if we work on our own. We all have to work as teams. We have to work collaboratively, and we have to work in a manner that benefits everyone. And if has been already established that the leaders of Tunbridge Wells Lib Dem, Maidstone Green Party and Sevenoaks and Tunbridge Conservative Party all meet on a regular basis, all got on very well together, and all feel that they can provide a really good suite of services and deliver them to the residents. And as Matt has already indicated, at the least worst cost from the multiple unitary options, I think that is something that we need to seriously consider. And we should be looking at these things on the basis of how the services that we need to provide for the most vulnerable in society are delivered. And it has to work in smaller units, which is why thus far districts have worked in providing services. We're just extending the size of those districts a wee bit. Under no circumstances can Kent do absolutely everything under what would effectively be the rule of one political party, because then that becomes an autocracy rather than a democracy. So we, as I say, we just need to be very, very careful as when we consider all the options on the table, just in the same way that the option put forward by Medway Council solely is there because it benefits the Labour Party. You know, they are chopping and changing boundaries that benefit the likelihood of Labour being able to hold on to one area of Kent. So that there are a lot of political posturing from individual political parties, whereas I think from my colour of the rainbow, we are being pragmatic as to what would work best for residents as opposed to what would work best for ourselves. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Mike Taylor.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I find myself agreeing with Matt and Sarah in essence. I mean, Harry has got far better financial knowledge than I have. And if he says a single unitary authority is the most cost-effective option, I have to agree with him. But despite the best efforts of Harry, Sarah and the rest of the KCC colleagues, KCC is an uncontrollable juggernaut. It pays no heed to the people it purports to represent. And a single unitary means putting all the power that the boroughs currently manage into their hands as well. So I agree that the smaller 3 authority model is probably the best one for us. I could be wrong.
Mike, Sarah Barker.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to all that have contributed. I think that was a very timely presentation. I will be, on behalf of the Calc T&M committee, pushing and reminding our parish councils to reply. I just wonder how Tunbridge and Malling are proposing to make this available to the wider general public, and if encouraging them to reply. But please be assured that the parishes will get reminder from Calc HQ and locally. And I also did send out the YouTube link to all our Calc executives throughout Kent. So hope some of them will be online and get your excellent presentation, Matt and Damien, hot off the press, as you said earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm just going to Matt to respond to that.
This is a very sort of government thing, but they run a public consultation and then put named consultees on there. So what the government actually wants to do is they've named a list of consultees who they want to hear from, who are obviously the county council, the borough councils, neighbouring councils, health bodies. Like Maidstone and Tunbridge Wells NHS Trust, the Integrated Care Board. They want to hear from Kent Police. They want to hear from the fire and rescue bodies, the education bodies, other public sector bodies. So things like Calc are on there. The voluntary sector, business bodies. So that's the Federation of Small Businesses, Kent and Medway Economic Partnership. National bodies. So they're things like the Environment Agency, the unions, National Highways. They want to hear the Lord Lieutenant's view on this, if the Lord Lieutenant has a view, which I highly doubt. But they also say that they want to hear from anyone, and this is effectively a public consultation. So while there's a specific ask to those bodies there, and as I said earlier, parish councils and Calc are included in that, anyone can respond to this. And the questions that Damien puts up are the questions that are in the consultation document, or you can simply write, as Hildenborough did, and email it in. We will be promoting this, and a notification will have come to your app this afternoon from TNBC. For those of you who have the TNBC app, there'll be lots of correspondence going out via email, via social media. There was an article in Kent Messenger this afternoon about this too. We'll be doing an awful lot to promote this, as will all 14 councils across Kent and Medway, to be fair. We have to stick, all councils have to stick within essentially the requirements to councils have got to promote matters in an objective way. The councils can't campaign for an option, but what they can do is they can advocate for their preferred option, which is what we're doing. Thank you.
Harry, did you want to come back?
I'll just keep it fairly brief if possible, just referring to the situation that Matt raised, that devolution isn't possible. It's actually contained in the SCO. There's a variation in the proposed SCO in the event that the Secretary of State goes for the single unitary. I'm not suggesting that that is going to be the case, that he will go for that, but nonetheless, the option of devolution is contained in the variation in the SCO. I've seen Council's opinion on the basis that it will come forward with a variation in to meet the requirement for devolution. But Matt, with the best will in the world, I listen to you. Let me put my point over now, okay? Turning then to so I've made the position clear in terms of how devolution would be accommodated. Turning then to the situation in connection with a large council. In fact, Kent County Council was historically the original boundaries are being put in, with the exception of those areas in Bromley and Bexley. The proposal to include Medway simply takes us back to the situation that prevailed prior to 1997, when Medway was devolved away. And I think also that it's only fair that the advantage to be gained from council tax should and the value for money, for me, at least people should be aware that there is a significant difference in the outturn on council tax when you're looking at one unitary council compared with multiple, and I'll take it no further than that. And the final point I want to address is one that Sarah brought up. The representation at Kent County Council now is a matter of democracy. Sufficient people voted in the way that they did in May of 2025 that the governing administration at KCC is as it is at present. But it's open to those who vote in May of 2027 on the timetable that Matt has put forward to us to vote as they see appropriate at that time. The administration at Kent County Council at the moment does not just carry on willy-nilly regardless. The fact is that it's a matter for democracy, and that will be affected on the current timetable in May of 27, and who comes forward then will be those that the people vote for. Thank you, Chairman.
East Peckham.
Thank you. Message from question from Matt, actually. First of all, say thank you for putting this presentation together. I realise it was short notice and it's certainly full of information. Matt, you mentioned obviously East Peckham may be split up, or was it going to be split up? And if so, what time frame, or do you have any more information on that, please?
So East Peckham, Merryworth, Leybourne and Aylesford parishes are split up under option 4D. And option 4D is the one that has 4 unitaries and bits of Tunbridge and Malling going to North Kent, bits into Mid Kent, bits into West Kent. I can send the 4 parishes affected the map that shows this, because some of them, so East Peckham's changes are reasonably minor, but Aylesford's changes are significant in this. If any of the other options are chosen, then there would be no breakup of parish boundaries. It's just option 4D, which obviously isn't the one we're advocating for. And one of the reasons not advocating for it is because we don't think it's our place to suggest that parish boundaries should be split up.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Matt.
Robin?
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Rayner sort of has a valid point here in terms of cost of the different options available to us. So it might be useful to have those costs more accurately published, because it's really up to the residents to weigh up the cost or the additional cost versus the loss of democracy, in my view, or certainly the dilution of democracy. Going from 12 LAs down to 1 is a massive step, and probably not that palatable with a lot of the residents. It's not palatable with me, that's for sure. In terms of costs, then, I think Councillor Rayner mentioned tens of millions. So at 50 million, say, and I think there's around about 650,000 households in Kent, and that's going to equate to around about £75 additional cost per household if you want to go down the option of the 3 unitary option. If it's 100 million, then it's going to be double that, £150 per household. So I think if we had those figures in front of us, that would be a very useful demonstration of what we value as democracy and being a 3 unitary, and all the reasons why Matt has argued for that, and they're certainly very strong arguments to support, as opposed to going down the 1 unitary option and saving £76 a year per household. Thank you.
Paul Hipmock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, from our point of view, or my point of view, where we are in Scotland, the bigger the authority, the less notice anybody's going to take of us. If you go for a county-wide authority, it become like the Environment Agency or whatever. You call in and you get an email number to, that's your fault number, and then that's the last you hear of it. We're democracy is high because we'll be pushed to the periphery. Our biggest hope really is the town councils and parish councils, who boots on the ground, local, and from there, if you get what is 4 authorities put together, that's by far big enough for me, because I don't know much about Sevenoaks and I don't know much about Tunbridge Wells. I've been there. I couldn't tell you I knew what the problems were there. Maidstone may be a bit closer because we're closer to Maidstone. Financially, yeah, there's going to be costs, but there's going to be less authorities. The borough council won't be here, and if the county council goes, that won't be here either. So it's not all on the downside. But personally, I support the option that the borough's put forward. I think it's the most reasonable for us. Thank you.
Adlo.
Thank you. Just a quick question. If we change government in the next couple of years, where does it put us with this? Does this all stop? Does this carry on, whatever?
I'll pick that up because it's a really good question. So once this is implemented, it becomes a permanent fixture going forward. Now, it's possible that a future government at some future date may decide to change things again. Given it's taken this long to bring forward these proposals, I think we might be waiting another 50 years. So I think, yeah, once it's implemented, we should assume that's what it's going to be going forward. Thank you.
Right. Any other questions? A very useful debate. I learned a lot from it. And Damien just coming back to me.
I hope it's the last word because I think it's been a useful debate, but I know you want to get on with the other items on the agenda. Just really picking up the issue around costs. I think as parish councils, you're relatively small. And I think because of your size, I bet that all of you take a huge amount of care every pound that you spend, and that you keep bureaucracy and overheads to an absolute minimum. Now, I've worked in large unitaries. I think the last unitary I worked in had an annual spent annually about £1 billion. And what goes with that scale is extra bureaucracy, less care about those pounds, and greater inefficiencies, unfortunately. Now, of course, there's always a sweet spot between being maybe too small to withstand those financial shocks, but then being too big, really, to focus on the details. Personally, I think a unitary the size of a county is too big for the reasons I've given, but also I'd be very concerned if it became too small, because I think Harry does make a really good point that if the councils are too small, delivering services like adult social care and children's social care and special needs transport and supporting unaccompanied asylum-seeking children can be more difficult. Having looked at the evidence, it's based on the evidence only. I think the 3 unitary model provides councils that get that balance right, the balance between cost effectiveness and actually the ability to deliver the services that local residents desperately need and desperately want. Thank you.
Right, thank you for that, Damien. Right, we'll move on to item 7, planning update, and Mike Taylor is going to give us an update. Over to you, Mike, and I believe Ian Williams is also online.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Can you hear me all right? Not really a lot to report. We have to thank everybody who responded to the Reg 18 consultation. Ian will correct me if I've got the figures wrong, but as I understand it, we've had over 2,000 responses with 6,000 comments. And that includes the online, email, and even the odd couple of letters. All that information, we hope to post. So when people look at the website and look at the sites they're concerned with, all those local comments will come up next to that. The next milestone, of course, is the draft local plan and the start of the Reg 19 consultation in September, I believe. And after that, the local plan is out of Tunbridge and Morling's hands. And all we can do is wait and see what the inspector says at some point in the future. Thank you, Chairman.
Ian, did you want to make any comments?
No, Councillor Taylor was correct. We did receive well over 2,000 comments, and the policy team and my team have been hard at work going through those. It's now sort of the analysis of those particular comments, and then feeding that back into sort of reviewing the comments of the residents and general public, and then sort of making amendments or any necessary changes to that plan. But of course, that's a lot of work to go forwards. So yes, I mean it's one of those, a lot of work still to go basically before we get to that Reg 19 point in September. I would like to also just sort of provide an update as well on the DM side. We've and the open digital planning, which I discussed at the last panel. If I just share my screen with you. So we applied to join the Open Digital Planning community. I put their vision up there, but it's a community which was started from a small group of local planning authorities, which was taken over by MCHLG and now over 100 LPAs. The visions that there shows you that it's ideally to sort of standardise planning data across the England, and the community itself provides sort of learning and development of staff, so sessions on sort of GIS and spatial data, user research, and the use of various software such as Power BI that we currently use as well. But it also provides networking and events as well for local authorities, particularly in respect to this improving the sort of 4 spatial sets I said at the last panel that we would be looking to publish. So we have been successful in our application to the Digital Planning Improvement Fund. That secured us a £50,000 grant from central government. Initially, that grant's for the publication of the data sets on the central government digital planning website. The programme itself will include the submission of a digital planning maturity assessment. So this will look at how the data we currently hold is stored, how we would need to sort of change that going forward, but also other issues in terms of how we use our software at the moment. And MCHLG will review that assessment that we submit to them and create an action plan for us, and a plan going forward in terms of publishing those data sets on the central government website. It's community and network of local authorities. So from my experiences of doing this at my previous authority, you sort of learn from the not mistakes, but learn from the solutions that other councils have come in terms of publishing the data. So one of the issues that we have here is obviously the amount of listed buildings that we have, and I believe that MCHLG want us to plot the data, plot the listed buildings in a curtilage, and that requires in some instances a sort of assessment. So we would have to sort of look at that, and with over I think 1,300 listed buildings in Tonbridge and Malling, it's quite a bit of work. But again, that grant is there to allow us to do that. It would also allow us sort of access to open source data planning software such as PlanX. So I think we also described this where you can sort of, as it were, design the software to provide solutions for your local needs. And one of the things that we're potentially looking to do is sort of get it involved in sort of enforcement, where we can sort of reduce and sort of triage enforcement complaints to the enforcement team. But it would also assist with the local government reorganisation by sort of standardising the publishing of data and other practices in terms of digital planning. So this is a sort of scheme which is going to start this month in February. We've had a welcome event already this week. Next week we will have a sort of onboarding session where they'll go into more detail with all the authorities in our particular cohort with sort of the digital planning maturity assessment, and how we can sort of make a plan going forwards in the publication of those data sets. But it will be quite a lot of work for the DM team and the digital transformation manager. But it's something that, you know, I think we need to do as a local authority to sort of make the data that we do hold, some of it is still in paper form, accessible to the general public, but also sort of just make sure that it's all sort of fit for purpose. Thank you, Chair.
Ian. Harry.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to make reference to the situation and actually to link together the previous agenda item 6 and 7, and ask to what extent is it likely that that whatever unitary authority comes into process, comes in through the LGR process and during the shadow period, will continue with the current local plan. And I ask the question because again, I refer to value for money. This local plan is not a cheap option. It's an expensive thing to go through. And my concern is to ensure that if local planning process comes to regulation 19 in September, October of this year, is there sufficient time left for the process to go through to inquiry? And indeed, what becomes of the situation with any shadow authority that is elected in May of 27 under the proposals that Matt has put forward, the timeline on that? I've asked this question a number of times before. I've never had a definitive answer, and I'd be interested to learn from either Damien or Matt or both of them, if they have varying views, as to how they see this situation being accommodated.
Matt, can you give that answer, please?
I can. I'm going to apologise to anyone who came to one of the 27 public meetings, because I was asked this question at most of them, and this is the answer that I gave, and essentially it hasn't moved on. So the government timeline for the local plan is that we need to submit our local plan to the planning inspector, i.e. have finished the Regulation 19 consultation by the end of this year. That's regardless of any local government reorganisation. Now, in order to meet that, obviously, we've had to proceed at the pace that we've done. It's then in the hands of the planning inspectorate. The indication is that that will take a year to get through examination, but we all know it could be longer than that. That's completely out of Tunbridge and Moorland's control, as Mike rightly said earlier. So the local plan and local development scheme timetable currently has us adopting the plan probably around the end of 27, the beginning of 28, so before the end of Tunbridge and Moorland Borough Council. However, one of the problems that we're going to have, and this doesn't just apply to planning, is that on vesting day, every single policy that Tunbridge and Moorland currently has effectively gets passed over to the new unitary. And the new unitary will have to determine whether it keeps that policy, whether it amends that policy to cover the wider area, how it relates to the neighbouring authorities who we've come together with. And whether that's a policy or a plan in place, a development plan, for instance, is down to them. But the one thing for sure is that they would have to start from scratch. And the reason they'd have to start from scratch is because they would cover the whole unitary area. So they would be required to do a local plan for the whole unitary area. So if we don't get the local plan in place now, then effectively the new unitary would have to start doing a local plan all over again. Now that's going to be a particular problem if, and let's say our option 3A is what happens, other authorities have got their local plan in place, because Maidstone have got an adopted local plan, Tunbridge Wells have got an adopted local plan, and Sevenoaks are on the same timeline as us. So let's say Sevenoaks proceed with their local plan too, and that gets adopted and we don't. Then you've got three quarters of the unitary that will have a local plan and 1/4 that won't. So there's no motivation for representatives from the other areas to effectively redo the whole local plan, having gone through the hassle of doing it once when in their old authorities, just because what was Tunbridge and Moorland doesn't have one at the moment. And even if they did, it can take a number of years to start because there's so much else to do. And I'll use Buckinghamshire as an example. It took Buckinghamshire 4.5 years to go out to its first Regulation 18 consultation after its reorganisation. And then from the start of your Regulation 18 consultation, it takes probably another 2 years. So let's apply that timeline for us. That would mean us going out to a Regulation 18 consultation in 2032 to adopt a local plan in 2035. Do we want to go another 10 years without a local plan? Probably not. That's why it's quite important that we get on with local plan as best we can at the moment.
Chairman, the difficulty is, of course, that it isn't in Tunbridge and Moorland's hands. Once it comes out of Reg 19 and goes to the government, the timing of the inquiry is a matter for HMG, not for Tunbridge and Moorland. And that was what I was trying to draw out and seek clarification on. And Matt has answered the question. It's very much in the hands of the government once we get our Reg 19. Thank you.
Matt.
Importance addition to that, because that is correct, it is in the hands of the government. And the importance addition is once the planning inspector does its thing and effectively passes the plan back to Tunbridge and Moorland Council for adoption, if it does take longer and it passes it back to, let's call it the West Kent Unitary for adoption, the West Kent Unitary can adopt it because the government at that point has effectively given it the go ahead. If the government doesn't want to have that local plan in place because it wants to do one for the whole unitary, then it won't pass it back to the unitary to do that at that point. However, we know that the government are as keen on local plans as they are on local government reorganisation, but I think it very, very unlikely that they effectively would prevent adoption of a local plan for Tunbridge and Moorland, even if it is delayed.
Mike Taylor.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to jump back to a point I should have made in my initial words. During the consultation phase, Matt and I visited an awful lot of parishes. He visited far more than I did. Thank you very much, Matt. There were some parishes we approached with slight trepidation, shall we say, but we were well received everywhere. And there was far less shrillness and anger and far more knowledgeable questions. And it was a very enjoyable experience in all. So thanks to every parish that we went to.
Any other comments from the floor? No? Well done. That was another good debate. We'll go on to climate change update. And there's a young lady sitting there that's going to do a presentation for us, I believe. Louise.
Thank you, Chair. Trying to share some slides. These should have been circulated.
Louise, have you got your mic on?
Hello?
Yeah. That's
Sorry. Sorry, I had this the other day. I'm a bit quiet. Apologies. Yeah, my name's Louise Stewart. I'm the new climate change officer. Well, I say new. I've been in post for 3-4 months. I'm not sure how much longer I can get away with saying that. But yeah, just to give you a quick update, some of the initiatives that TNBC have been doing and a few things wider, and then just to give you an update on just a site visit we had a couple of months ago. So since I've been in post, I have been reaching out to a few of you and attending some meetings and some community events. I have to say it's quite inspirational, some of the things that I've been out and seen. I've seen our repair CAFs, and there's been some really interesting energy projects that are happening across the borough, which I'll go on to shortly. Here at TNBC, we've rolled out climate change training that is to staff and members. That was just before Christmas, just to raise awareness and get staff engaged on the climate change agenda. On our recycling front, the team have been working really, really hard on rolling out food waste recycling. There's been an increase in requests for food waste caddies, which is really, really good. And I believe there'll be news coming up shortly in communities and environment around the new waste contract. One initiative that I've been involved with, which has been actually quite interesting, is a thermal imaging camera. That's been quite a fun, interactive way to reach out to residents. Residents are offered this to use it in their homes to look at energy efficiency. We've had over 40 residents booking to use the camera. We've actually had to source a second one because it's been so popular. Launching today is the Green Business Grant Scheme. It should be up on the website, I believe, but I did look earlier today and I couldn't find it. So there is a website there if you have any inquiries. So that may be of interest to local businesses looking for energy efficiency measures. The Community Development Grant Scheme is now underway. We had another auction of solar together in the autumn, and we've still got a number of installations, that's with householders, in progress. In terms of Gibson East, work is progressing with that, with the installation of air source heat pumps, and I believe solar panels will be going up shortly. completion on that is expected in August. We've also got another few other quite impressive decarbonisation projects on other properties that we can give an update later on down the line. Quickly on tree planting, the projects identified for the climate change action plan for 2025 are now complete. I'm quite interested to hear about the upcoming Japanese type forest that's being done at Tunbridge Racecourse, so that's going to be an interesting one to look out for. And I know our leader has been promoting the planted trees on social media. Some wider initiatives. So this was requested at the last PPP to find out what other parishes are up to and what's happening. So I know some parishes have got car clubs as part of their local initiatives. So there is a electric vehicle event happening in Maidstone in April, so that you can test drive a range of vehicles there. CASP, Climate Action, Shipbourne and Plaxtal have had a really interesting energy project. They were successful in being awarded some funding. There is a event happening, I believe, the 25th of April. I'm not quite sure how that is being promoted, but I believe that's going to be a Saturday event where you can just turn up a kind of an exhibition style, where they'll be discussing the success of their energy project and the next steps of that. And just to make note, Westmoreland Parish Council, one thing that they're going to be promoting is the Great Big Green Week. That's in June, so they're going to currently looking at a number of events over the week. And you may be aware, last month, Warm Homes Plan was announced. So that is a new government initiative that will be looking at energy efficiencies and a range of different ideas and initiatives coming forward with that. So shortly after I started here, I was asked to facilitate, I can't quite remember how it came about, but a visit to the waste centres facilities. We had 2 visits on the same day. This was back in November. We visited Allington Household Waste Recycling Centre, and I have to say, I'm a bit of a waste geek myself, and I did find it really interesting and very useful. There was a couple of topics that came up around fly tipping, around non-recycling. They've got some trials happening. So it was really useful. We had the site manager take us around and give us a tour and talk to us about materials and items that are hard to segregate and dispose of. A highlight of the day was seeing their reuse shop that opened in September. So they've got a shop there now, which is selling donated secondhand pre-loved items, either donated or saved from being thrown into the waste on site. And they've also got some quite interesting local initiatives as well. And that site visit, after that, we went to Blaze Farm just down the road. And again, a really interesting tour of the facility. So this is where our garden waste goes to. So our garden waste is collected here. It's transported here in the borough. It's processed in the borough. And then the output is a high quality grade compost, which is then used in local farmland. And output of this meeting, this site visit, was that we were able to connect a couple of parishes who were able to utilise the soil as well. So it's a really interesting closed loop win-win really there. So that's all from me from now. If there's any questions.
Not a question. Thank you, Chairman. It was just to say thank you to Louise. I bang on about climate change to PPP every time, and I thought it's time to let Louise have a go this time. And she always does a great effort at all the slides. It was just to add a little bit more to the climate change stuff as such. It's sort of related across my portfolio, but it's the Bluebell Hill development that was awarded, given planning permission approval last week at full council. It's a 12 modular home development that's going to be a carbon neutral modular home development run by Tunbridge and Morling for temporary accommodation in the north of the borough. It's the very first development that we've ever undertaken of this nature, so it's quite exciting that that was approved last week, and it will be giving much needed and valuable accommodation to our residents of Tunbridge and Morling. I just thought I'd quickly mention that. The visit to the Blaze Farm was brilliant, but I just thought I'd add the next visit that we're going to try and organise is the anaerobic digester, and that produces gas when it's running properly. Of course, it will produce and does produce gas that potentially can supply the whole of Kings Hill. So it's going to be a fascinating visit. So I'll let everybody know when that's organised. But that's the next interesting visit that we're going to try and organise. And then just a little bit more info on this building. People might not understand Gibson East and Gibson West, but this is Gibson West, the old traditional part of headquarters of Tunbridge and Morling, but sadly grossly inefficient in terms of running and maintenance. The other side, which is slightly newer, which is Gibson East, is the part that we're refurbishing right now. You might have seen it as you drove in the car park. It's all hoarded off, and that's going through some major refurbishment to bring it up to a carbon neutral position with air source heat pumps, solar panels on the roof, etc., etc. And then it separates itself from West and East, with the hope that this building then is sold off before LGR puts the shutters down on what we can and can't do. I'm sure Matt will explain more about that later. Well, later on as we get nearer to LGR. And then the very final thing, I'm going to push this because I push this every time at parish council meetings, and I'm going to do it now whilst we've got everyone here. And that Louise has already mentioned about the green business grants, but I thought I'd just bang on about it again. Really launched today, but basically, if you know any businesses that can benefit from reducing energy costs by being more efficient, then this is the grant for them. It's capped to a maximum of £5,000 or 50% towards the costs. And obviously it's geared to being more efficient with energy and reducing carbon. So please spread the word, spot those businesses in your parishes, tell them about it, and then direct them to Jeremy Whitaker, who can give you all the information. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Sarah Barker.
Thank you, Chairman. If I may, I have got 3 questions I'd like to put. First of all, I noted the e-learning package. Can that be made available to parish councillors? Because we are still, I feel, in the situation that our parish councils are not perhaps pushing this forward as they should. And if your members and officers have been trained, then a global within Tunbridge and Morling might help. The anaerobic digester, has that actually started operating again? And when will it be in full capacity? And I would like to put a plea out to all parish councils. Green Week, 6th to the 14th of June. West Morling do an excellent job, and I will be promoting that via the T&M committee to see if we can get more parishes to promote that and take it on board. Thank you, Chair.
Did you want to come back on the anaerobic digester?
I can come back on the anaerobic digester. I have to get an update on that one, Sarah. I know that at the time that we were down there looking at the compost, it was in the stages of being handed over to a new operator. So I'll get an update on that. But of course, we won't organise a visit until it's up and running, because it won't be
excellent. Thank you,
it
Robin.
won't be very interesting otherwise. E-learning, Louise.
Thank you. I will have to look into that. I'm not sure if you can access the platform. Leave it with me. I'll have a look.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Shelley.
A silly question, perhaps, but how do people get to and from this 12-bed building that's being put up in the middle of the roundabout at the top of Bluebell Hill? I wondered if it's all very carbon neutral to have a place which could only be safely accessed by car.
Thank you.
As with everything, Tom, the best way is to promote obviously electric vehicles. And that's the best sustainable travel at the moment until we get the hydrogen technology sorted out. In terms of families, obviously, well, we're talking about families in the north of the borough that will operate in the very same vein that we'll operate, but they found themselves in a distressing situation of losing their homes. So there will be just normal families that will have a normal car that they drive around in, like pretty much 99% of the whole borough. If they haven't got a car, then of course there are bus services that do serve that location that are all within about 15 to 20 minutes walk. And then of course, then you've got the Asda superstore that also is within a 20-minute walk of those modular homes.
I just wondered if somebody was going to make a proper walkway. It is quite difficult to negotiate anyway around that roundabout if you're on foot or on a bicycle. Has this been thought through in the planning?
Tom, hi.
Sorry.
Yeah. So essentially, the other thing to add to what Robin said is that the families who will be housed there are the families who have been made homeless, but their connections are to the Aylesford area. Whereas at the moment they're housed outside of Borough or potentially as far away as Tunbridge. So in terms of their carbon footprint, it's going to be reduced because they won't be travelling as far. They're going to be housed close to where they have been and where their connections are. The site, we struggled, frankly, for sites in the north of the borough to deliver temporary accommodation. We've searched high and low. So if you know of any ones that you consider that are more suitable, then please let us know. If there aren't any, then we do the best with what we've got. The site there, as Robin said, it does have a path. Yes, it's not an ideal path given the speed of the road and the roundabout, but it's still a path that you can get to bus services and you can get to Asda to pick up your groceries if you don't have a car. If you do have a car, then obviously it's not a particularly long drive either. But critically, it comes down to the fact that actually we want to make sure that every community has got the opportunity to provide housing for those who are in the most need. This was the best option for the Bluebell Hill and Walderslade area.
Okay, can I just come back what Louise was saying about the Alresford waste recycling? I attended that visit along with Robin, other councillor, and I was actually amazed how good it is. Staff there are literally second to none. You can even dispose of your own fridge freezer. You can take it there and they will take it free of charge. And oil and cooking oil and stuff and paint. You know, if you try to get some paint at home, where are you going to put it? You can take to them, they will dispose of it. So it is a really, really good quality service. And also the Blaze Farm composting facility, apart from the heat and the smell when you're in there and it takes 2 or 3 days to disperse from your clothing, it is another amazing situation. And now I'm going to say something for parish councils. If you've got an allotment society in your parish, they will supply 11 tonne of composted waste, which equates roughly to, you go to Homebase or B&Q and get a 25 kilo bag of compost, 440 bags of compost in one load, and it will be free of charge apart from the haulage. The haulage, we've got 2 councils already signed up. One happens to be in my village and one the next village along. They they are getting their delivery in 2nd of March. £85 plus VAT. Now you tell me where you can get good quality compost for that sum of money. You won't. So if we've got parish councils that have got allotments and they do want them, either get in touch with me, get in touch with Louise or Robin, and we can put you forward for a delivery. As I say, it's £85 plus VAT. It's an 11-ton lorry, so it's an 8-wheeler. They will need access to your allotments, but it is a very, very, very good use of our garden waste. So, you know, as parish councils, if you don't take something like that up, well, I'd have something to say. Okay, right. Right, we've done the Kempley. Any other business from anybody? Here not, okay. Right, the next meeting of the Parish Partnership Panel is on the 28th of May. And you can attend in meeting and or online, so it's entirely up to you. And I'll close the meeting now at 9:17, and thank you all very much for attending, and it's a good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Good night, everybody.